one of my favorite pastors that I love, talks about how he used to practice his preaching in the backwoods of Virginia. He makes a joke and says that people wouldn't invite him to preach, but they would invite him to clean out the baptismal pool. And if any of you guys are familiar with church, you know that the baptismal pool is where everybody goes in with their full clothes on to get baptized and all of that on various Sundays. So they wouldn't call him to preach. And he had a lisp. And he used to say that he wasn't very attractive at that time because he was poor. And so he would preach as he was down cleaning the baptismal pool to himself. He would preach in the woods when he was going to get wood or whatever. And he said his wife would come upon him and hear him speaking life and practicing full sermons to no one, to the birds, to the trees, every day. No one wanted to listen. He had 3 people in his church, and most of them were his family. I think they were all his family. But he took those small steps every day. And he said one day his wife came and said, "Baby, what are you doing?" And he said, "I'm practicing." What are you practicing? The reason that story touches me is because I have listened to this man for maybe 15 years. He has gotten me through some incredible situations in my life and over some very large, seemingly insurmountable humps. Before he was ever on the world national scale, I was listening to him. But now, where you can find T.D. Jakes is in the company of Miss Oprah Winfrey and having his own show, not from her, just his own show that he's acquired. He's written umpteen books. He has a mega church in Texas that he is the pastor of, maybe 10,000 plus people. He is literally in our homes on almost a daily basis. He's been on the cover of Time numerous times. One cover that struck me particularly was, "Is this the next Billy Graham?" Now, if you know who Billy Graham was, and is a fantastic preacher that was incredibly popular throughout all of the 60s, 70s, and 80s into the 90s, is T.D. Jakes the next Billy Graham? And what that speaks to me of is that daily practice. This man from the backwoods of Virginia that used to talk to the birds and the trees while his wife questioned his sanity has become one of the titles of the Time magazine, America's Pastor. He has counseled presidents and sat with kings. And he didn't do that because he knew when he was in the rural mountains of Virginia that he was going to sit with kings and presidents. He thought, I'll have a church. And I'll keep growing the church, and maybe that's what I'm called to do. But what he was faithful in a little. He was a good steward of what God had given him, which was at the time an audience of worms and birds. And every day he preached to those worms and birds until those worms and birds became more congregation and more people. And it evolved until now he is America's pastor. What he accomplished is an incredible feat, but he did it by daily practice. So what are you practicing for? I want you to know that whatever you're practicing for is going to give itself back to you in spades because you're vested into it. Whatever you're practicing for returns in spades to you. So, if you're at the office and you're practicing in gossip, what do you think is going to return to you? Or if you are practicing charitable giving and you donate your time and energy to people, what do you think will be given back to you? In the Word, since we're talking about T.D. Jakes, we'll pull from the Word, from the Bible. It says, "Give and it shall be given unto you, pressed down and shaken over." That's why it's good to be in gratitude. That's why it's amazing to be a giver. You have to practice. And sometimes we idolize people's success and we say that, like we talked about, I want to be like them. But we don't know what the investment is, what the cost is, or how much they practice. We don't know what it takes. And what it takes, I'll tell you, friends, is being faithful in the little things and showing up on a regular basis and investing and being patient with the process and not enthralled with the promise. I'm going to say that again. Be patient with the process and not enthralled by the promise. And I have to admit, these are my confessions. Like, I have been enthralled with the promise. I remember being a child and having teachers say, oh, Monette has so much promise. You know, that's a lovely thing to hear. And I used to get so frustrated because where was this promise? How did I get to the land of the promise? Where was I going to be the magical person that they could see me being and envision me being? And in my life now, I know that I have potential, as we all have potential. But sometimes I get so distracted because I'm human, and I get so frustrated because I think, well, why am I not to where I think I should be? I have my action plan and my 5-year plan. I have my 3-step plan. I have my mentors. I have people speaking into my life. How come I'm not magical yet? You see, I've gotten enthralled with the promise. The process is me showing up in my life every day. The process is speaking with people, counseling clients, doing the show, writing things. That's not always fun. But I adult and I get through it. You know, adulting, that's a phrase that's come into our lexicon recently. I adult and I get through it. And every day I grow. Back to Tommy. She will adult and get through what she's gone through. And she will continue to grow because I do believe she's called to be a speaker and to touch people, whether we like what she's saying or not. God is not a person who favors our politics. He favors our talent. He favors what he's put in us. He favors our potential. So I am not here in judgment of her, but I can see a woman like myself who is striving for something. And that I will always respect, no matter what package it's wrapped in. I will always respect that. And so what I want to say to people that have had an experience like her, where maybe you've been knocked down and you thought, but I was doing what everyone said I should do. Why hasn't this worked? Why have I been found lacking or fraudulent? Why have I been found out? And I want to answer you, it's because you weren't really tapped into your core. You were modeling your life to be like someone instead of being the someone you were created to be. It's easy to want the accoutrement of the thing you're wanting. Sometimes we are stagnated in life because we have a bit of an attention deficit disorder. And this doesn't mean that you aren't called for the thing that you're wanting. It just means that you're required to make a deeper investment in order to go to the next dimension. The next dimension isn't a foreign dimension to this dimension. It is merely an escalation of a process that is already in motion. Your future, in some way, is akin to your past. So the thing that you need, and you're thinking, well, when is it going to happen? And is it in me? It is in you. Everything you are going to be, you already are, but just in another form. You are the acorn of an oak tree. An acorn, guys, it's that time, doesn't look anything like an oak tree. When you see it on the ground, it's small, maybe less than a half an inch in diameter. It doesn't look anything like an oak tree, but everything that the oak tree will be is contained in the DNA of that acorn. It's contained inside of that little nut that's on the ground that the squirrels pack away and keep in store. It's important that you're around people who can see the tree in you. And I love trees. You guys know that I talk about that in Little Seed in my book. This has been an analogy that has been so powerful to me. But it's important that people can see the tree in you. Have people around you that can see the tree in you, because not everybody will. People will step over you. They will ignore the acorn that you are. They will say, nothing to see. Move it along, folks. No big deal. It's just a little acorn. Probably going to be a squirrel's dinner. Do not worry about it. But destiny will bring the tree out of your nut. It will bring the tree right out of that acorn. And I want you to be careful, because it's easy for us to say, oh, yes, people will step over me. Don't mind the haters. Put up our hand. Fly above the haters. But I want you to hear this. It's not just that people will step over you, but you will step over you. That's right. We step over ourselves when we're in that acorn stage because we're so busy trying to compete with the trees around us. We think that we have to be like them. We see them, we see ourselves in the acorn form, and we think, you know what? I clearly am destined to become a tree. Everybody back up. Newsflash. Stop the presses. I'm supposed to be a tree. So we posture like we're a tree when we only have what an acorn has. We only have the capacity to be an acorn at that moment. And so we sidestep our process. We step over ourselves. We are in a hurry to get to this beautiful, grand level. When you see these oak trees, especially here in Florida, I'm so blessed to have one right outside of my home. This amazing tree that I look at it and stand under it sometimes and I think, you've seen lifetimes pass by. It has to be at least 300 to 400 years old, if not more. It is grand with a canopy that spans, I can't even imagine the footage. I'll have to really measure that and see. It's incredible. But it started out as an acorn. Hundreds of years have passed that this tree has stood and seen life transform around it. But it started out as an acorn. When you're in that acorn stage, it's so imperative that you don't diminish or underestimate the process of what it takes to stand tall for hundreds of years, or what it takes to stand tall in your career and be a juggernaut, or what it takes to stand tall and be recognized and leave a legacy. Legacies are not made in a day. That's an important word. It's not made in a day. It's made over a lifetime. It's made with hundreds of little decisions that happen every moment. That's how you leave a legacy. You can't wake up tomorrow and say, in 2 weeks, I'd like to leave a legacy. That doesn't happen. Because in order to leave a legacy, as we said in the beginning, your mettle will be tested. Your authenticity will be questioned. And you will be put through the ringer of life to make sure that you are who you say that you are. When you're looking at those trees around you and you're that acorn, understand that you're still in the evolutionary process of the acorn. You've got to give it some time. You've got to give it some water and some sun and some focus. That's important, especially with our ADHD world. You got to give it some focus and you will reap a harvest. You have to know that you have to be grateful for the place that you're at, even if it feels like you're moving at a glacial pace and nothing's happening. As long as you are investing energy every single day, you are in your process. Do not underestimate the amazing growth that happens over a period of time, a period of protracted time that you judge as too long. But how long is too long to leave an amazing legacy? How long is too long to impact the lives of others if you're tapped into your authentic self? How long is too long to pull from the pain of your past to uplift others? It is counted all as good. It is never wasted. It is never something that goes by the wayside, because all of those moments in your life, they add up to that process. And before you know it, you do inhabit that tree. So clap for the seedling and appreciate the seedling that you are. Appreciate that acorn. Otherwise, you will never get to be the tree. You have to bless yourself in this process. You have to bless your spirit, your soul, your tenacity to adult day to day. Bless yourself and say, oh my gosh, I got up again today. I did it again today. You know what? I committed again today. I didn't want to go and I'm here again today. And I put on a smiling face and I gave my best and I got something out of it. I ended up being blessed because I stood up and God met me where I was. And I believe that the universe does it. I believe God, universe, whatever you want to call it, they meet you where you are, but you've got to invest something, and that is that daily practice. You can never become a maestro if you don't do those beginning scales. You can never become great at anything you want to do if you don't put in the rudimentary practice that it takes. You must